Hello, and welcome to this edition of Motivation and Money with me, Mark Terrell, and my co host, Fanny Snaith. How are you today, Fanny?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Tip
Fa-
top. All things good.
Fabulous. Excellent. So, we are here today on National Book Lovers Day. And weirdly, I chose to make this edition all about books, and I didn't know it's going to be that day. So, if you're watching this on replay, it was on Tuesday, the 9th of August. And that was National Book Lovers Day. And we're going to share some books today that we think that you should read because there are sort of favourite books and that we've got loads of value from. And if you are watching this and there are books that you think that other people want to, or you want people to be aware of that are important to you, then feel free to share them in the comments. Right then, so let's start off with one of yours then, Fanny. I think we'll throw the baton to you first.
The trouble is, I have so many.
Hmm.
I'm an avid reader, um, but I'm an avid listener as well. I do love an audiobook. Do you?
Not so much. No,
Oh, really?
no. I don't seem to get so much out of listening than I do. I have to read it, weirdly.
That's funny, isn't it? Because I do a lot of walking, you see, so I like to listen to books while I'm walking.
Yeah, it's one of the things I've got to do an audio version of my book at some point, but that's probably the reason why I've not got on with it because it's not something that I tend to do. So yeah,
No.
but I will get around to it one day. Anyway,
So, anyway, books. I don't know which one to start with. Okay, so I think, because with obviously I like to read a lot of books that are to do with my work.
hmm
So I like to read a lot of money books, and I tend to read more money mindset books rather than practical money books. Although I have read some practical money books, although I prefer to look online for those. But I think that probably the book that is at the heart, my true heart, and really at the heart of what I do and my training is this book, Money Magic by Deborah Price.
hmm
And the reason um, that I love this book is because this is the book that focuses on the 8 money types that I use in my work, because it's Deborah's IP, it was her invention of it. But what makes life so clear in this book, what becomes so clear in life actually, is that it's not of how much money penetrates the rest of our lives. And that even though we focus on money being a problem, which it is a problem, but it's a problem that we've put upon it rather than money has put problems upon us. And there are just so many. I mean, look, it's, you can see I've read it and written notes. It's looking right old tatty.
yes,
Um, consumerism is the addiction of our time, and it's time we owned up to it because we've got far too much to lose. I mean, there are some absolute cool. There's just one of the little highlight buttons I've got in
mm
there, but there was, it's such a clever book,
mm.
talking about money in a completely different way than I think you'd ever have read about it ever before. So that's going to be
Okay,
my top book, I think,
okay,
because it's got a spiritual side to it, but it's also very nuts and bolts, but also offers people a framework to help them internalize, get more of an internal locus of control rather than thinking about what's out there, thinking about what you can do within to change your relationship with money. And I think that's very, very important.
yeah, really good,
That,
good start,
that's my
excellent.
first one.
So
What
that
about
was
you?
just to recap. What's that? Was Money
So
Magic
it's Money Magic
by
by Deborah Price.
Deborah Price.
And, didn't think that I was going to mention this, but if you want to do the money type quiz that's on paper in here, if you want to do the version that's online, you can just go onto my website, fannysnaith.com, and take the money type quiz from there. But this book is, I always give them the first 3 chapters. Any of my clients, one-to-one clients, I always ask them to read the first 3 chapters of this book, and I send them that. With the love
Fabulous.
of Deborah, by the way.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good start. Right. So one from me then. So I'll just highlight me so I've got a bit more space. So my first book, well, it's sort of 2 books actually. This one, firstly, is Mapping Motivation mapping motivation. Sorry. So this book is all about, not surprisingly, motivational maps and how to use them to unlock employee energy and engagement at work. So the reason I like this book, because it's obviously about something that I talk a lot about, but it's very practical. It's not the cheapest book you ever bought, but there is practical things that you can get in from the book that will actually make you do things. So I like books that do that. I think like books that make you do things, think about things differently, and have exercises in them. Actually add a massive amount of value. So this one is the original mapping motivation, and then James Dale, who wrote this book and who also created motivational maps, went on to write 4 more, and out of those 4, I've picked this one, which is mapping motivation for leadership, which again is something that is obviously key to what I do. It's using motivation with regards to leadership, the importance of it, the reason why we're driven to do things and why we don't do things is really important to understand for ourselves. And then also when we're leading a team, understanding how we motivate others, understanding their motivations are most likely be different than ours, and then understanding how that sort of pans out with regards to our behaviour, how we can get more from other people by just adapting our behaviour to what the other people or our team want from us. So that's my starter for 10. So mapping motivation and mapping motivation for leadership.
That's cheating because you had 2 then.
Well, it's a sort of, but they're sort of merged into
Yeah,
one
they're sort of linked,
topic.
I guess.
I didn't want to do them separately because it almost like we're repeating myself. So that's my start of a 10.
Okay.
Back to you.
So my second book, when I did my training as a money coach at the Money Coaching Institute, one of the things, the exercises that you go through is all about, it's all about your money story and what things were going on when you were a child and what kind of environment you were in, generally, but also but focusing on financially, really. And I did all that work, and I still felt that I had a hole somewhere. Something was still missing. And I can't remember actually how I came on to this book, but I know it's been, I've mentioned it before, but I've got to bring it back again. I'm going to say it doesn't sell itself with its title. So somebody does have to recommend it to you, but it's called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz.
Right.
And I believe that this should be in school, on the school curriculum somewhere, because it's just such a clever book. It says on the back here, when loosely translated from Greek, cybernetics means a helmsman who steers his ship to port. The contemporary definition of cybernetics is the scientific study of how people, animals, and machines control and communicate information. Psycho-cybernetics, a term coined by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, means steering your mind to a productive, useful goal so you can reach the greatest port in the world, which is peace of mind. And for me, that basically translated to me as, if you can become in alignment with the self, if you can become in tune with who you are, why you are, and what you are, I don't think there's any better sort of purpose, really. So in this book, even though it's not got a very catchy title, just to highlight something that it's got, which is really clever, it's got 2, is it acronyms? Is that what you call it? One for success and one for failure?
Right, yeah.
But all of this is basically the book that talks about self-image. So it says here, improve your self-image, learn to use your positive past, set and achieve worthwhile goals, develop compassion, self-respect and forgiveness, cultivate the power of rational thinking, and discover the key to happier, more successful life. And again, it's got exercises and all sorts of stuff that you can do with it. But just to give you an idea, I love these 2 acronyms. So the first one is the picture of success, and success is acronymed at sense of direction, S, U, understanding, C, courage, C, compassion, E, esteem, S, self-confidence, and S, self-acceptance. And I think if you can go through all of those 7 and get to grips with those, or get on the way to grips with those, you're really on the right path to the best port that you can find for you.
Yeah.
And then if you look at a picture of failure, he goes, except again, I found that patients can remember these negative feedback signals. So this guy was a plastic surgeon, and he started studying identity when people wanted their or needed to have their faces or parts of their body changed, and what it actually did for the self. So it's a really fascinating study. So he says, again, I found that patients can remember these negative feedback signals, or what I call the failure mechanism, when they associate them with the letters that make up the word failure. They are F, frustration, hopelessness, and futility. A, aggressiveness, misdirected. I, insecurity. L, loneliness or lack of oneness. I tell you, I suffered from that in the past, that's for sure. U, uncertainty. R, resentment, and E, emptiness. So you partner those two things together, read this book, which is not hard work, do the exercises. I pretty much guarantee there'll be some kind of positive change for you. That's how much I love this book. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
It's just because in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I get that, and a lot of what you've just said is, linked to motivations as well, because it's about our image, and there's no good or bad motivations. And just because we're driven by something doesn't mean we're a good or bad person. It's just associated with things that we see as good, and some people see things as bad. And when we talk about money, the biggest reaction I get when their top motivator is builder, which is the drive for money and material satisfaction, is it's not all about money. It's almost like they have to give some excuse for it. I said, there's no good or bad. It all depends on whether it's working for you in reality. And so self-perception and understanding how that plays out is really important. So that would be on my list if I'm allowed to buy another book. We've got a sort of one in, one out in our household.
Buy them second hand.
I do. I do buy them. Yeah. So,
but
it's space. That bookcase is full behind. So
this is one of the books that I bought on Audible, and then bought the paper book as well. Right. And I do that often, actually, buy it twice.
So you listen to it, and then you get the book, so you can make notes. And
I listen to it, but then I might. So, for instance, if I read it first, I then might go out for a walk and listen to it again. Because what is it? Mother is a repetition of all learning, right? So it's repetition is the mother of all learning.
Right.
The other way around. And I often find that I'm now reading less books, but more often.
Yeah.
I'm not actually. I think actually, to a certain extent. I mean, with a lot of these business and self-motivation or self-help books, a lot of them say the same thing, but in a different way. And I think I've actually got enough on my shelf now to just revisit them and really learn them, rather than actually put new stuff in.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same place, actually. There's only a few little bits and pieces that I'm particularly interested in at the moment.
Until my book comes out, of course.
Until your next book comes out. I'd just like to share, before we talk about that, is when you say about what your book is going to be about. Fanny's already been involved with 3 books, which she doesn't talk about. And that was the reason why I thought about books today. Do you want to just mention the 3 books?
Oh, yeah, all right. So there's this one. This was the first book I was involved in, which is called Financial Freedom Explained. Yeah. And I do a chapter. It's just a chapter written by me. Okay. And it's all about money mindset, and it's actually probably a bit about my mum and dad, and a little bit about me as well. Look, there's even a picture in there and everything.
Oh, look at that.
Okay. Yeah, it's this is when I used to be the financial freedom fighter. So that's how old this book is. So it goes through the money types. So in that one, and then I'm got another one here, which is Fit for Purpose Leadership 4, which is a series of books that are printed by my very good friend and publisher Andrew Priestley. So they're look, there I am on the back again. See up there?
Yeah. So is there 20 authors, 20 chapters? Is there?
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
So Fit for Purpose Leadership 4. So I'm in that one. Yeah. And there's another one as well called Retire, Inspire, and which is all about when you're coming up to retirement, how you can No, sometimes the chapter I wrote, I loved the chapter I wrote in that one actually, because that was all about how you can prepare yourself mentally for retirement. Because everything shifts when you retire financially, especially if you're in a job.
Hmm.
In the fact that, last week you went to work 9 to 5, 40 hours or however many it is. And this week you're getting paid, but you haven't got anything to do, or or you're not working.
Mm.
And just I spoke to quite a few people who had retired and done that, and just their shift in confidence and where they fitted into the family, where they fitted into society, how they were viewed by
Mm.
people. I mean, I know a lot of women my sort of age talk about you get to a point where all of a sudden you disappear. You just become middle-aged woman that nobody really sort of looks at. It's a fascinating
It's
thing where you
really
suddenly
interesting. I think retirement's really interesting in that. I mean, we were at a barbecue at the weekend with some sort of couples, and one couple they both retired, and you sort of see how they've sort of made that work for them. And then there's another couple that said, "Oh, probably be working until we die," sort of scenario. So it's almost like complete opposite one and the other.
Mm,
But they both sort of have a certain sort of view on the world, and that's sort of what's driving them to
mm,
the decisions that they make. One was driven by a sort of family history, and decided that, well, if I'm in that family history that isn't particularly great, then I'm not going to wait to the day where I get the bad news. I'm going to make sure that I've got time to enjoy my life while I can. And then the others is around sort of financial aspect about who knows now, with inflation and all that sort of stuff, can I afford to retire and all that sort of thing. Which it was interesting listening that
yeah.
it was almost like, do you want to carry on working, or is it really about the current situation, or is it about something else? So
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely, and I
yeah,
think socially, things change an awful lot when you retire.
yeah,
Retire,
yes.
you
I
know.
met somebody yesterday actually that just helps people into retirement, so they sort of
Mm.
helps them transition. So it's interesting how people sort of set
Yeah,
up.
yes, I know. There's a chap in England who's well, he doesn't actually help him transition, but I trained with a guy in America called Bo Henderson. He's lovely, and he has a company called My Rich Life, and it's about how to retire with elegance.
Right, yeah.
It's quite nice. He's written some books.
Yeah, it's a
What's
massive
your next?
change in lifestyle, so it's important to prepare yourself, I think.
What's your next book?
Right, my next book is going to be
Dun, dun,
Liberating
dun.
Leadership by Derek
Oh,
Biddle and Ali Stewart.
I know Ali Stewart.
So this is the reason why I have to mention it. Well, I don't have to, but it's been pivotal in what I do in my business. It's understanding how if you sort of simplify the leadership process into a model, which is explained in the book, which we talk about three things. One being mindset, high challenge,
Mm,
high support. The other being a process to follow, starting
mhm,
with a vision, and then knowing the right skills to use at the right time. You break it down
mm,
into those elements, it makes it so much more manageable. Because I think obviously
mhm.
leadership is a massive topic, and we've
Yeah.
got to try and make it
Well,
as easy to understand
bloody
as
well
possible.
should be if it's not.
Yeah, so it's just a great framework, and it just sort of boils it down into those sort of three elements, and then the book goes into all the sort of frameworks that lie behind it, and the work they did to test out how things work. And with this, because I'm a licensed practitioner of this model, of liberation leadership,
Oh, by the way, yeah.
it comes with some diagnostics. There's four diagnostics that I use, so you can test people a bit like your
Mm,
money quiz thing, that test people on where their mindset is with regard to that central mindset, how their skills, which skills they perceive themselves as good at, and ones that they feel they're maybe weaker on. And so they get great feedback. And we've talked about feedback in previous shows. That's the key, is to say, well, where are we today? Then you could do some work to improve. and then you can then remeasure and say, well, how's things changed? Because mindset is around how you process things and how you act. So you need to sort of do some work and then come back to it and say, well, what would I do now, and see what the difference is. So the key thing is, with regards to that model, is that we can measure it in some way with regards to where you are on it, and see where you're making improvements.
What do you know? It's interesting because it strikes me that you're quite a measurer. You're quite a good plan do reviewer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you cope with people that don't want to do that?
Well, yeah, it is a challenge. We talked about before we came on air about challenging clients, and you learn from those. You have to see it as a sort of learning experience, I think. Someone said to me, so going back to motivations, my lowest motivator is director, and the Bevis, who taught me or sort of mentored me through the motivation maps process, said your biggest challenge would be those people that are high director, and he's dead right. So when we're coaching someone, it's our biggest challenge is the people that are most unlike us. It doesn't mean that we can't coach them, because we're a good mirror to them. So we can make probably the biggest impact on those people, but we've also got to realise that they're probably going to challenge us more than someone that's more like us. So that's how I see it. I see it as people that are like us might be easier, but do we really make the impact that we want to make? So there we are.
Nice.
So we've got 5 minutes to cram in a couple more. If you've got another one there.
Oh yeah. So I'm this one's a little book. So sometimes when I'm coaching people, well, in fact, all the time when I'm coaching people, I'm trying to get to the real root of what's eating them, or the root that's keeping them where they are, or holding them back from where they want to go. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people are unable to express certain things in their lives for whatever reason. Sometimes things are too painful. Sometimes things have been subconsciously blocked off. And sometimes they just don't really know. They don't really get an idea. So I came across this when I was doing my training to become a block clearance therapist, which I didn't finish the training, by the way. I decided to do money coaching instead. I came across a lady called Louise Hay, which I'm sure many of you will have heard of. And this tiny little book, look, it's a skinny little book called Heal Your Body. And it's basically to do with metaphysics. So it's the mental causes for physical illness and the metaphysical way to overcome them. So, for instance, I don't know, when we look at certain ailments that we have. So it's literally just a book that looks like that inside, and it's got a whole long list of ailments. Like, for instance, knees here. Knees. If you have problems with your knees, if somebody goes, I've got a problem with it, I know it's to do with stubbornness, ego, and pride. So it's where, so we talk about disease, right? But actually, if we actually re-describe it as dis-ease, it's where emotions come out in the body, are literally come out in the body, and it's well studied. I'm not a complete expert on it, but I know quite a bit about it, and it's really interesting. At the back, they've got all the little bits of the spine. Like here, they've got a picture of the spine. And my husband has a couple of discs that are damaged in a way. And when we look up those discs, and I go, well, this is what those discs represent in the body, he goes, oh my God, that's just so true. Gosh. And it really helps me to understand what's going on with people. So give me a very small example. Like a lot of children get throat things, like tonsillitis and all that kind of stuff. And according to this system, metaphysically, what's coming out in the body is that they're not able to express their anger. They're not able to express what they want to say.
That's really weird. Because, the reason why I think that is not weird but interesting is that I had my tonsils removed and I reoccurrence of tonsillitis.
Well,
But I
many
think as a
many.
kid, I was definitely I found it difficult to express myself because of various factors in my family that sort of
Yeah,
squashed me. So that's
absolutely. I
interesting.
mean, I could you can pick out all sorts of things. I mean, I'll just pick out one. So, I mean, some of them are pretty obvious, and some of them aren't. So, for instance, the left side of the body generally is to do with the female, the mother, and the right side of the body is to do with the father. So, for instance, if somebody's got a bad knee, a left knee, it's going to be something to do with stubbornness, ego, and pride, to do with the feminine or to do with the mother. And it's not it's not an absolute science,
Hmm.
but it's a really different way of looking at something. So, I mean, I had a client once who could not talk about her childhood. It was really difficult, and I was trying to do her money story with her. So I said to her, have you got any, did you have any ailments or anything like that when you were a child? She goes, not really. She said, the only thing I used to have is I used to have nosebleeds. I said, oh, right, okay, that's interesting. So I'm sitting here kind of going, right, off on nosebleeds, looking it up in my book, and MNOP. So I look up nosebleeds, and it says a need for recognition, feeling unrecognized and unnoticed, crying for love. So I was able to, rather than just going, oh, I've just read in this book, I was able to use it surreptitiously to ask about a relationship that she would have with her parents. And it
Hmm.
turned out that mum was suffering from postnatal depression, and it was really difficult with attention, all that sort of thing. And it was that opened up the whole story of conversation for us.
Wow, that's really powerful, isn't it? Amazing.
Yeah, it's very, very, very. It's really, really, really powerful. I absolutely love it. Or you can pick this up cheapest chips on eBay or wherever on secondhand. And it's yeah, I've had this with me since 2017, and I have to say I probably visit it almost daily.
Amazing. Yeah. I've had a problem with my
Yeah,
left
don't you?
knee recently.
Huh?
I've
Your
had
left
problems with my
knee.
left knee. Funnily enough,
Well,
it's lost. It's better now. Obviously,
good.
I'm less stubborn than I used to be. Maybe I don't know.
What,
I've
yeah,
got
but it's
over it.
ego and pride in a particular aspect.
Yeah.
Right. There you
Right.
go.
Right. We haven't got much time, so I'll quickly say I'll go through mine, which is probably one you're not expecting because, but it's something subject that I'm really interested in, and that is this is contrast content fortress by um, Martin Hutchbank and Lindsay Cambridge. Now,
Okay.
so it's nothing to do with what I do, but it is really in some ways because we all got to put content out on our social media, and I think people really get hung up on about it. And what we need to realise is, we just need to get an idea of why we're doing it. And in contrast, Content Fortress, they basically spell out the reason why you need to do it. And there's lots of reasons why you need to have content, blog particularly. So I a friend of mine, or friend of ours actually, he's just set up a photography business, and I went to his website, and there was no mention of prices anywhere. So,
Okay.
and I thought, well, I don't know whether I'm going to forward his services because at least I have some idea. So I sent him a message, and he said, "Yeah, that's interesting, but I don't want to, obviously, it depends on what I'm doing, and I can't really put a price on." And I said, "Well, why don't you write a blog about why there's no prices on your website, and that would make people understand why you can't put a price on." And he said, "Brilliant, yeah, I'll do that." So that's how you can use content to
Yeah,
overcome
yeah,
a potential problem with regards to the information you put out there. And I mean, I
yeah.
realise that sometimes it's really difficult to put a price on a service. So one of the things that Content Fortress does is make you understand how you can use content to overcome objections and stop repeating yourself. So when people keep asking you the same question, then you've got something where you can say, well, yeah, well, this is a brief answer, but if you want more detail, here's a blog I wrote scenario.
Right.
So
Okay.
so
Cool.
there we are, something a bit different. So there we are. I think that's well, it's just past our time. We just to mention that I am using Ecamm to produce and or stream this service to wherever you're seeing this. which is slightly different to what it used to be, because we used to have to use a streaming service, but now it's all built into Ecamm. So highly recommend using Ecamm if you're looking to do a show like we are doing. So I'll just mention that.
That's only for Apple users, isn't it?
Only, I say only. Yes, it is. So it's only used. It's only used on an Apple device or an iMac. Yeah. So let's wrap up then, Fanny. Any sort of closing remarks before we finish off our little voyage into our book?
I don't think so. I've really enjoyed today. I like talking about books. I could talk about books all day. But we'll put all the names of the books in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll add them to the comments wherever you, so that people can follow up and find them if they're interested in buying them. So yes, absolutely do that. I haven't mentioned my book, but obviously you'll find that on my website. In the right at the end, you'll see my website, and you'll find my book, this book here,
Yeah, I
Motivated.
think which book? Oh, look,
Motivated.
That one,
which is all about motivation. You, your business, and your team. Great stuff. So thank you for those that joined us. If you catch this on replay, please leave a comment. We'd love to answer any questions or any comments that you might have around the books that we talked about. And as I said before, if you've got some books that you'd like to share with anyone that sees this, then feel free to add them in the comments. So until our next show, we'll say goodbye and have a great week or two, and we'll see you next time.
take care, everyone.